First thing, classic cars are fun to drive. They just are. You feel connected to the road in a way that you don't in modern cars. Modern cars are very sterile. They do everything for you. You don't even need to think. Older cars, feel every bump in the road. Steering needs a bit of muscle. You don't need your music. You got that lovely sound coming from the back. It's a good sound, isn't it? There's something very tactile about an older car. Something about the feeling that you just don't get with modern cars. Then of course there's the actual cost of maintaining and running a classic car as well. In the UK, if your car is 40 years old or more, it's classed as a historic vehicle. Now this means, first of all, you don't have to pay road tax on it. Now, with lots of modern cars like electric cars and such, they have free or cheap road tax. But your middle of the road cars that most people drive are not free to tax. I used to have a 2.5 TDI Volkswagen T4. And that was almost £300 a year just in tax. Obviously you're already paying tax on the fuel, you're paying tax on all the parts, and now you've got to pay tax just to actually drive the damn thing. That's British, you know, politics for you. So no tax to pay. Secondly, it doesn't have to have an MOT. This is your annual vehicle health check where they go through the lights, the brakes, make sure there's no rust, everything works, all the steering's good, tyres, etc. It's always a bit of a bum clenching moment for any car owners because you dread the phone call from the garage in case they say, it's got X wrong with it and it's going to be hundreds and hundreds of pounds. But classics don't need an MOT. Now, of course, your car still needs to be in roadworthy condition to drive. If the police pull you over, there's no lights on it, the handbrake doesn't work, you know, there's no windscreen, then clearly you're going to get in trouble. But it's nice of them to treat you like an adult for a change and actually say, you know what, you know, whilst you can put an MOT on it, you don't have to. As long as everything works, then, you know, we're good. So yeah, this makes, all of a sudden, it makes keeping the car much cheaper because now all you have to do is just insure it and put fuel in it. Obviously, like I say, you need to make sure the car is roadworthy, running, and of course you'd want to anyway, right? Why would you want to drive a car that has no lights or the brakes don't work? That's ridiculous. So naturally, for your own survival, you're going to want to make sure the car is well maintained. But all you have to do is insure it. Insurance for something like my Spitfire, £60 a year. That's third party, fully comp, so nothing. And then all I have to do is put fuel in it. So a one-off annual payment for your insurance and then put fuel in it and it's good to go. This makes keeping a second car much better because you're not losing money on it when it's parked down the side of your house like you would with a, you know, a more modern car that you had to pay tax on. You can leave it down there for as long as you want. You can dig it out on the sunny days or whenever you feel like it, throw some fuel in it, off you go, and knowing it's a nice cheap alternative. In fact, I don't know why more first-time drivers don't opt for British classics, any classics, purely down to the cost factor. If you're trying to save money and the insurance is cheaper, I appreciate not a lot of younger people might want to drive an older car, and they can be expensive to buy, but in terms of running costs, you make your money back in a few years. And then you got servicing. Now, it's no big secret that modern cars are an absolute nightmare to work on, with the best will in the world. Cars nowadays are not designed to be pulled apart by the home DIY enthusiast. Not at all like they were, at least back in the day. Now, obviously that doesn't mean you can't service modern cars at home. Of course you can. You can do things like brakes and fluids and, you know, those usual sort of jobs. But in terms of actually tearing a car down and getting into it, because these old cars were built by hand, they can be taken apart by hand. And a prime example of this, story time, is master cylinder. Now, in my nice little van I picked up not so long ago, I had a clutch pedal that was slightly soft in the morning, so when you went to put it into reverse in the morning, it would always crunch into gear, and I thought, That's no problem. I can bleed this through. It won't take me 5 minutes. No. 2 weeks later, I've got the dashboard removed, I've got the steering column removed, all the steering linkage for the rack pulled out. I've taken apart a metal framework underneath the pedal assembly just to get to the master cylinder because it wasn't working. Master cylinder made of plastic. And even then, after all that, I still couldn't fix it. Compare that to the master cylinder in this car, for example, and again I'm just using my Triumph Spitfire as an example because it's the only classic car I've got. The master cylinder is here. There are 6 bolts holding said master cylinder in, not including the clevis pin and the ferrule. You could change a master cylinder in this car in less than an hour. In fact, in this car, in an afternoon, you could have the entire engine and drivetrain out. No problem. Can we do that with modern cars? I don't think so. You can quite literally take this car apart with spanners and sockets and maybe a couple of other specialist tools here or there along the way. But for the most part, 90% of this car you could take apart yourself in a matter of days with a set of spanners. A set of spanners and sockets now won't even get you under the bonnet in most modern cars. You'll have big plastic trays in there that cover everything. You can't see what you're doing. They use specialist headed screws where you need to buy the correct, part from the manufacturer, and it's just, why? Why? And then you've got the investment side of it. Now, people like to put their money in different places. People don't tend to invest in things until they get a bit older and a bit wiser. I'm sure we were all that age once where money was just something that flew out of your hand very quickly. Now some people put their money into the bank. Some people put it in stocks, shares. Nowadays invest in things like crypto. Some people buy artwork and hang beautiful pictures on their wall worth tens of thousands of pounds. And that's cool if that's your thing. But if we had a time machine and we could go back 20, 30 years or so and buy things like, at least in the UK, Mark I Escorts, E-Type Jags, the list goes on. There are some stunning cars out there that once upon a time didn't cost the earth, would have cost you a couple £1,000s. If you took those cars, put them into a lock-up and then sold them nowadays, you'd be looking 30, 40, 50,000 pounds for said cars. So classic cars are an investment. Now, if you go and buy a modern car straight from a dealership, from a garage, the second you drive off the forecourt, you are losing money on it. It starts here for new cars, and as the car gets older, you put miles on it, the value starts to dip down. One day that car will become a classic, and then all of a sudden it'll start to go up the other side of the curve again. So new cars, you lose money on. But old cars, very, very, very rarely will you lose money on. Even things like old Minis, for example. Even things like old Minis. When I started driving, you could pick up an old Mini for £200, £300, with MOT, ready to go, bit of work needs doing to it. Nowadays you won't find one of those old shaped Minis for less than £1,500, and I'm talking basket cases, completely rotten through, no engine, just a shell and a VIN number, and you're still paying £1,000 plus for them. And of course, the great thing with a classic car as an investment is that you get to enjoy it. And I'm not saying you can't enjoy art that's hanging on your wall, or you can't enjoy looking at your mobile banking and seeing all the figures in your bank account, but it's not the same, is it? At least with a classic car, you can treat it like artwork, i.e. you'll know the feeling if you've got a nice car. Sometimes you just want to go and look at it and just think, it's my car. You can go and drive it, other people will appreciate it, and as long as you look after it, you can take it home, put it away, and that car is always going to be worth more as the years go on. You can't say that for a lot of things. And then finally, we have preservation. You can sleep soundly in your bed at night knowing that you have done your part. You've got yourself a classic, maybe you've restored it yourself, maybe you paid someone else to do it. You've taken a car that one day will be destined for the scrap heap, and you've saved it. It's still out there, it's still doing its miles, it's still taking you on fun journeys, and if that car could talk, if you could find out the history of that car, it may have had some adventures in its lifetime. Who knows where the car has been? For all I know, it's been around the world. I don't know. Maybe it's been whizzing through the Swiss Alps, maybe it's been driven down to the beach. Who knows? And in this respect, we become something of a curator. Whilst you own the car, legally, morally, the car will hopefully outlive you. And one day someone else will own your car, hopefully, and drive it and have new adventures and new times. And maybe one day they'll be making a video about this same car, saying, I wonder what the history of this car was. Wouldn't it be funny to find out? So, I like that. I like that. You've kept something on the road that was destined for the scrap heap, you've given it a new lease of life, and you've kept another classic car on our roads going, because again, if the roads were full of modern cars, what a boring journey it would be down the highway. Every time you drive by a classic and you're going somewhere, you go, oh, it's a whatever it is. Oh, nice Mustang. Oh, what's that? That's an old Mini. Oh, nice. It's a Morris in the UK. And as I say, I like that. You're the curator, you're looking after the car, and you've saved it. So there we go, guys. 5 reasons why you should buy a classic. If you don't agree with me, type it down in the comments, let me know. If there's something important you think I've forgotten, stick it in the comments, let me know. Until next time.